Welcome to our PHP web course. In this video, we will learn how to insert data into the database from a web page. I am looking at PHP MyAdmin. We have already created our database called My Blog, which contains one table. We have inserted two records or rows of data using PHP MyAdmin. We will insert one more record or row using a web page form. We have already learned how to display our two blog posts. Now I have added a link to my blog post page. When I click on that link, it will take me to a form. When the user fills in this information, we will click the Submit button and the data will be entered in the database. I have now entered some data and I will click Submit. Notice I have two messages just for myself for testing. One says the connection is successful. The other says the record was successfully entered. When I go back to PHP MyAdmin and click on the name of the table again, we now see that my post indeed has been entered into my blog database. So let's take a look at how this is accomplished. First, we have a static HTML web page where we have our form. If we look at our form code, we have two form elements. One is input type equals text, and we have the name blog title. The next one is a text area, and the name is blog entry. I have a submit and a reset button. And the action of my form is blogpost.php. Now I am looking at blogpost.php. The first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that this page was called from the form. So as we have done often, we will use the $_server request method to make sure that the request coming in is coming in from the post. That form was validated with HTML5. So we know that the values are coming from the form. I will use the $_post server variable to retrieve the values and store them in two variables. Notice I have an else condition on my if. In the event that this page was accessed without coming from the form, we will give the user the error message using the exit function, which will also not only display the error message, but terminate the code at that point. Now we are connecting to the database, which we have already learned how to do. I will use a try-catch block to not only test my connection, but to make sure that my SQL statement works and the data is inserted. So now we will create the $SQL variable to hold the SQL insert statement. I will first draw your attention back to PHP MyAdmin to refresh your memory on the structure of our table. The ID column is an auto increment, meaning it will automatically increment. The date entered is either a date-time data type or a timestamp, and I have inserted the current _timestamp function so that the time will automatically be entered. Therefore, two of our columns are automatically going to be giving us values, so we do not have to worry about sending values for those two columns. We only need to worry about sending the values from the form, which will be placed in the title column and in the entry column. So now back to my SQL statement. I have insert into and the name of the table. In parentheses, I have the column names. Next, I have values, and in parentheses, I have the two values. So $title will be entered into the title column, and $entry will be entered into the entry column. You may be wondering why I have quotations around these variable names. We have never done this in PHP. Let's go back and look at this. These variables are going to hold a text value. And even though PHP is interpreting them and will display the value, it needs to know that that is a text string coming in because that is the data type that we entered. We have a varchar and we have a text data type, and both of them would be using data that is in quotations. Therefore, we need to put quotes around this. Notice that the whole SQL statement is double quoted. Therefore, we're going to use the alternate quotes on the inside values. You may see people adding the other columns and inserting a blank space or the null value, and that is okay, but it is really unnecessary. If you did not use a default value in the date enter column, you will need to insert the function now, which will retrieve the current date and time. Notice that now is not in quotations. However, if you did insert a default value, MySQL will automatically put that in for you. Now we're going to use the exec method of our connection object here. And we are passing it the $SQL variable, which holds our SQL insert statement. In the previous video, we used the query method. The query method is used when you are retrieving data from the database. The exec method is used when we are executing some code. And in this case, we are just executing an insert statement. We are not returning any records. So we have our connection string, our SQL statement inside our try block, and in our catch block, we have code for the error. And notice I also have a test echo in both, telling me whether we had success or whether we didn't. After we're finished, we set the connection object to null. So we are using 3 files in this application. The opening page shows the blog post. And if we look in PHP we see that the data would be naturally displayed from the first entry down, meaning from the farthest away date to the most current date. Typically, on a blog page, you would want to see the most current date first, not last. Therefore, in my select statement, we add the order by, meaning the order in which the data will be shown, and we're ordering it by the date entered column in descending order, meaning the most current dates will show up first. So the user can come and read the blog post. They also can click on the link and enter a post. They can fill out the form. So I have some test data here. I will click submit. I see my test messages that my code was successful. I go back into my database. I click on the name of the table, and now I see that my 4th post indeed was entered. When using the insert statement, we need to enclose the variables that contain the form values inside quotes because they are being entered into the database as text. However, supposing these variables have quotes or double quotes inside them also, that will cause an error in our syntax. So here we have an example where a user could be using double quotes or a single quote in a blog title or post. When I click submit, I see the error message. How do we get around that? One way is to use the add slashes PHP function. Add slashes will automatically escape characters such as a single quote, a double quote, and a backslash. So by using this function and passing it the value of our variable, we can now safely submit this data to the database. Now when I click the submit button, it appears that everything was submitted correctly. And when I look in my database, I see that indeed the quotes are in place as they should be. And when I click on my blog homepage, I see my quotes are in place as they should be.